It is just stupid to be a football fan in China because you're literally cursed. The China national football team is horrible. Watching their game is mental torture, deprivation of happiness, and at the end of every tragic game, because you're suffered from long-term Stockholm syndrome or some other mental illness, you always sit in front of the TV again for their next game. It's like leaving Avachi, which is the lowest level hell in Buddhism, where one endures suffering incessantly 99% of the time. This is how fans feel about this team. But in the past 10 years, unlike the national team's disastrous performance, there's one unusual Chinese football team, Guangzhou Evergrande Football Club, which is undoubtedly the most successful football club in Asia. From 2010 to 2019, Guangzhou Evergrande won 14 domestic titles, including 7 consecutive champions of the Chinese Super League. More importantly, Guangzhou achieved international success by winning the Asian Champion League twice, in 2013 and 2015. That was an achievement which no other Chinese football club has ever met before. Even in a super popular comedy film called Hello Mr. Billionaire, which made a stunning box office of 2.5 billion RMB in 2018. The main character inherited 1 billion RMB, and the thing he wants the most with his fortune is to play a game with Guangzhou Evergrande. Being able to be the villain in a blockbuster film means Guangzhou Evergrande it's so well known, like Thanos in Avengers, Voldemort in Harry Potter, J.J. Abrams in Star Wars. Yes, JJ, what the fuck is happening with the rise of Skywalker? If we only look at the past 10 years in terms of honor and influence, Guangzhou Evergrande is absolutely the #1 football club in China, even across the entire Asia. That's so weird, right? How could a China national football team, which ranked at 76 in FIFA World Ranking, which is between Bolivia in 75th and Uganda in 77th, has the best football team in Asia? It's like the best European football club is in Latvia. Okay, here's the thing. China is a country full of mysteries. I'm pretty sure you also don't know that China has 44 million Christians, which is the same as the entire population of Spain. Well, I will dig into this weird contradiction between the exceptionally good club and exceptionally bad national team in my next video. But since we talk about sports economics, another tool for measuring the success would be its financials. Is Guangzhou Evergrande a financial success as well? Actually, the key to all its accomplishments is simple. Guangzhou Evergrande is owned and named by one of the biggest real estate corporations in China, and its boss is so bloody rich. So rich! Real estate! Just like me! The owner of the club, Hui Ka-yan, has a wealth of $21.8 billion US, which ranked at number 34th on Forbes Billionaire 2020 list. And his richness is so well known because of a famous picture of him wearing a shiny Ahmed belt on the social media. And in the company's annual report, he also addresses himself as Professor Hui because he's a visiting professor at his alma mater, Wuhan University of Science and Technology. Of course, it has nothing to do with his 100 million RMB donation to the university. So, basically he has an image of a super rich scholar who also likes football. With that much money, Evergrande kept the breaking transfer and salary record in Asian football history since 2010. In 2011, Evergrande bought Dario Cunca, who was the best player of Campeonato Brasileiro Série A in 2010 for 10 million US dollar, and a rising star Hisharu Godat for 15 million euro. A real world-class player Jackson Martinez from Atletico Madrid for 42 million euro in 2015, which is the highest transfer record in the entire Asian football market. Well, unfortunately, this deal was a disaster because Martinez only played 16 games in 2 years because of his knee injury. But the positive side is, buying super expensive but underperformed players means you have become a world-class sports team like Manchester United or New York Knicks. Guangzhou also hired Marcelo Lippi as the head manager with a check of 15.5 million euro a year, which made him immediately become the 6th highest paid football manager in the world in 2013. That's just a lot of money being spent. On the other hand, Guangzhou Evergrande Football Club, since it's a public company, its annual report shows that in 2019 and 2018, it has an operating loss of 1.9 billion RMB and 1.8 billion separately. Its operating profit margins are minus 207.34% and minus 303.23%. Since the Evergrande Group took over the club in 2010, it has an accumulated loss of more than 6 billion RMB. Those are just not good looking numbers for any company from any perspective. Well, you would probably only see similar numbers on some airlines' financial report this year. So, does Evergrande hate his money like Jack Ma?
我从来没碰过钱，我对钱没有兴趣。
First, it's quite common these days to see crazy rich oil tycoons pour their money into football. Chelsea, Manchester City, PSG all became top-tier clubs by burning billions of euros. What are they thinking? Are the owners just like insane for football? Suka bread, take my money, get my trophy. I do believe owners like Abramovich really loves football. People say he chose to be an Israeli citizen because he won't need a UK visa to watch his Chelsea game anymore. But at the same time, businessmen never take the calculator out of their mind. As I said in my previous video about Manchester City, sports clubs are very ideal assets for long-term investment. For instance, the baseball club New York Yankee was sold in 1915 for $460,000 US. In 1998, it was sold again for $630 million. And now in 2020, it worth $5 billion. That makes it become an asset with over 9.2% annual return for 105 years. And that's under the condition of baseball is a more of original game compared with football. And why the MLB's final is called World Series when its original league with only American and one Canadian team playing? The NBA champion called itself World Champion? Wow, they did. Let's move back to football. Compared with baseball, football has a much more significant global impact and a more extended history. All major clubs in Europe have history of more than a century. No matter what kind of disasters happen, people still play and watch football. Even during the World War II, regional football leagues were continued played in UK alongside the dropping bombs. Well, always play until COVID-19 pandemic shut down almost everything. But resuming football matches is still for discussion all the time. I mean, it's just so brutal to see Liverpool fail to get the champion for the 30th time. And the Bundesliga resumed already.
Erling Haaland gets his 10th goal of the season. 2,500 goals conceded now by Schalke.
So, in many places, football is just as important as water and YouTube. Well, they just can't live without it. Football has the highest number of fans among all sports. But compared with baseball, basketball, or American football clubs in the US, football clubs in Europe are not as profitable and valuable as those American sports clubs because of problems like league structures, team management, and business development. But football clubs are making some progress, like the UEFA financial fair play. Football clubs are full of potentials of making more money. Well, because of this potential for football business, rich owners have the incentive to put a massive amount of investment in the preliminary stage, which could allure new fandom and make money in the long run. In 2008, Mansour purchased Manchester City for €210 million. For the next 10 years, he invested more than 1.3 billion to the club and merely made any profit from the operation. Is he an angel? Well, he does dress in all white, but not exactly. The value of Man City also surged to €2.1 billion, suggesting the market has confidence in Manchester City's profitability in the future. Well, the way he makes money from Man City is like you bought a very shabby house, but you hired a Spanish housekeeper, found the Argentinian chef, set up a Belgian chocolate fondue, and put a Jesus sculpture in the middle. The house looks so fancy now, so it worth 10 times the price you paid, but that's just not the case for Evergrande Club. Even though it's a public firm with a market value of 19 billion RMB now, it's a fake number. First, this value is about the same as Arsenal or Chelsea. Kroenke is smart. I'm 100% sure that he won't trade Arsenal for Evergrande. The second reason for this ridiculous market value is because the club is listed in an exchange called National Equities Exchange and Quotations, which is commonly viewed as a long-forgotten place. In fact, the stock hasn't been traded for more than a year. Because of very limited number of investors and trading volume, it can hardly reflect the actual value of the stock. With nearly 2 billion RMB loss every year, such huge loss will easily surpass the increase in team value. I mean the actual value, not the ridiculous 19 billion one, which should be significantly less. So, making profit for Evergrande Club is even more pessimistic than Manchester City. So why Evergrande? Why? From a pure football side, compared with European countries with well-developed football culture, China is still in a very early stage in terms of sports consumption, but we are getting rich and we need more places to spend those money, such as sports. Even if you know nothing about football, you see people around the globe go crazy every 4 years for this thing called World Cup. Won't you be curious to know why? As we said, A football club has a potential to last a century long. Perhaps the Guangzhou is prepared to lose money for 20 years and make money for the next 80 years, with growing interest in football among the general public. Plus, for the next 25 World Cups, China should be able to make into at least one of them, for God's sake.
海东在巴西队禁区内站了足足89分钟，终于体力不支摔倒了。点球，中国队获得一个点球，点球进了，理论上的死角，中国足球万岁！中国万岁！
So it's possible to see Chinese people love football as much as Europeans in the foreseeable future. And there are almost twice as many people in China as in the whole Europe. Top European football clubs can make good money. So only the best football club in China sounds like a money magnet as well. But the problem is, the day Chinese people commit to football to be the love of my life, when exactly that day is coming? The bad news is the day may never come. Because no matter how good she looks like, you may fall in love with someone else, like how most marriages end with, right? Brad Pitt. Football in China has two major competitors. They're called basketball and esports. Unlike Chinese football, which never failed to fail you. Chinese basketball had its peak when we had Yao Ming, one of the best basketball players in the world during his prime time. His short but outstanding NBA career developed tens of millions of basketball fans in China. Although it's not hard to find a basketball court, but it feels impossible to find a football field. Even if you only watch it, China's time zone made watching European football games become a physical challenge. NBA games are mostly in the morning, but football games are usually after midnight. And the Champions League always starts at 3 a.m. Witnessing Liverpool's stunning 4-0 comeback on my beloved Barcelona at 5 a.m. in the morning, I almost died. Although recently China's national basketball team also had some disappointing performance similar to their peers in football. Regarding the number of participants and audience, basketball is still the #1 sport in China right now. And esports, League of Legends, Dota, King of Honors, Overwatch, and they're just so popular. Some esports league even claim to have 5 times the audience than CBA and CSL combined. I think that's a little bit exaggerated. Still, it is a fact that maybe in the future, the #1 sport in China is not any sport, but esports. So if I were Professor Hui, football may never become the most popular sport in China. Even if it does, I don't know how long do I have to wait. Why am I still investing so much money into this black hole? There must be another reason. It is noticeable that many owners of China football clubs are real estate companies. Can Evergrande's football help its main business, real estate? When Guangzhou Evergrande Group purchased the club on March 10, 2010, the stock price of China Evergrande Group was 3.4 Hong Kong dollar at that day. And the stock price reached its peak at 31.55 Hong Kong dollar on October 24th, 2017. The stock price of Evergrande Group skyrocketed since they purchased the football team. With such shining performance of the club, quite a lot of people think Professor Hui's football investment hugely benefits his primary business, real estate. Is it true? Well, let's forget about football for a second and take a look at a very interesting Chinese real estate market. Since around 2008, housing price in China went through a rocketing stage until about 2018, resulting in real estate to become a luxury consumption in China nowadays. Let's conduct a very simple comparison. I've lived both in Beijing and New York, and the average housing price in Beijing is about the same as New York. Meanwhile, the average income in Beijing is only 1/4 the level of New York. Outrageous real estate industry created dozens of mega companies and billionaires. Among those real estate enterprises, Evergrande is a relatively younger player, but is more radical than its competitors like all young people. Evergrande was one of the first to implement the standardization process. It also quickly expanded to 3rd and 4th tier city market in around 2015, which seemed less lucrative for other mega firms. The key to such radical strategy is high leveraged finance and high turnover rate between projects. It borrowed a massive amount of money from banks, issued debt both in domestic and overseas market to uphold its expansion. The result is Evergrande has the highest debt ratio among the top 5 real estate firms. 176% looks quite scary. To build more houses, a real estate company needs 2 things: fundings and land. And to maintain the growth, it needs this new magic thing called diversification. The story of diversification is prepared for 2 groups of people. financial investors, and government, which provides Evergrande with funding and land separately. For investors, real estate is a declining industry compared with renewable energy or technology. They're more willing to lend money to these emerging industries rather than real estate. And the government feels the same. They want that real estate can facilitate the development of other sectors. So they would like to sell land to build shopping malls, high-tech districts, or sports stadiums, which can stimulate the economy, create jobs, and increase taxation. But most commercial real estate projects are rental-based. It usually takes decades to cover the initial investment. But selling residential buildings are much more profitable with this much shorter capital return, because people who may work in the commercial area also need residential units nearby. Developers are allowed to build some residential buildings alongside. Therefore, the cost of the entire project can often be covered solely by the sales of the residential portion. The result is, to build lucrative residential buildings, real estate developers need all kinds of commercial reasons to persuade the government to keep selling land to them. Well, because of this, diversification is crucial for Chinese real estate companies today. For Evergrande, its new business like electric cars, life insurance, and football are some examples for its diversification as a reason to keep getting funding and purchase new land. A few weeks ago, Guangzhou Evergrande started to build its own football stadium. That's a very interesting story. Evergrande is luckily the only participant of the land auction because there are two requirements. First, you must be a Fortune 500 company. Second, you must build a professional football stadium with more than 80,000 seats and be the home stadium of a Chinese Super League team. Evergrande Group paid the starting price of 6.8 billion RMB to get the land, and the project proposal was announced just 1 hour after it acquired the land. The story is like a WWE game, full of predetermined confidence of the winner. Also, the design of the stadium is quite unconventional for being too conventional. It is said that original idea is coming from Professor Ahmed himself. So, what do you think? And there are a few more professional football stadiums will be built by Evergrande in other cities in China. So it looks like running the football club does help Evergrande's main business in real estate from the supply side. But you can't ignore the fact that Evergrande Group has hundreds of projects in the whole country, and there's only a few of them are football related. What about the demand side? Does running a football club makes Evergrande Group sell more houses? In sports economics, advertising value equivalency is a magical word to convince investors. It's a measurement of how much money you have to spend on advertisement could be achieved by owning a sports club. For example, in Formula 1, Mercedes said in 2017 the advertising value equivalency of running the F1 team was $3.4 billion and its direct investment to the team was less than 100 million. Sounds like an excellent deal, right? But does Evergrande can benefit that much as well? Advertising value equivalency is so high for Mercedes F1 team has two reasons. First, Mercedes F1 team has the same name as the parent company, which is quite common for racing teams, but not the case for football clubs. The football world is decidedly against the owner to have the naming right over their teams. Leipzig Red Bull is like the enemy of the entire football world. China doesn't have this restriction yet, but neutralizing team names has been required by the Football Association before 2021. Well, that doesn't sound good for Evergrande. Second, Mercedes sells cars. Racing in Formula 1 has a direct impact on consumer decisions. Look how fast the Mercedes cars are running on the circuit. I'll buy their fast cars as well. But Evergrande sells houses. Look how good they play football. I bet their houses are beautiful with good quality as well. It just doesn't work like that. Actually, Evergrande knows that as well. Their jersey advertisement is mostly their own consumer goods business, such as bottled water, cooking oil, or life insurance. But since about 97.3% of the revenue still comes from real estate development, the advertising value equivalency for Evergrande Club has a very limited impact on its real estate sales. So can Evergrande Club's success persuade customers to buy their houses? Not likely. That leads us to one last determinant, and is possibly the most important one. Evergrande's goal is not to benefit from running one club, but the development of the entire China football, because a lot of people want it to happen. A lot of people, including our beloved President Xi. He's a big football fan as well. In 2016, when he went back to his middle school, he proudly told students that 50 years ago, he used to play football here, and their team was number 1 in Beijing and 4th in nationwide. Since he became the top figure in 2012, he consistently showed his keen on football. He took selfie with David Beckham and a more famous one with Prime Minister Cameron and Aguero. As the most influential football fan in China, President Xi, just like any other football fans, wants the China national team to be one of the best in the world. Well, that's a bit far. How about we start with getting out from the defense of Uganda and Bolivia? Since the president openly expressed the wish to improve China's football, Guangzhou Evergrande is, for sure, the most responsive one. Billions of loss compared with the recognition of the most powerful football fan of China. It just doesn't sound that bad anymore. But the biggest question remains, can Evergrande make a success of China's football? This is a very complex dilemma. I will try to give an answer in my next episode, so don't forget to follow me.